My name is Jeffrey Ernstoff. I am the creative director for Etudes for Innovation, which is the cultural component of Kin Global. I was serving as the creative director for the Fortune Innovation Forum in New York, and I had directed that show. I wasn't appearing in it. And the guy standing next to me said, this is really good. And I said, thank you. He was smart enough to know that if I was saying thank you, I probably had something to do with it. Well, that person was Rob Wolcott. And as it turned out, within a week, I was in Chicago. We seemed to sort of hit it off just backstage at the Fortune event, and we started talking about how the arts might be integrated into the overall Kin operation. I knew nothing of Kin. It started really at smaller Kin dialogue sessions. Rob and I knew that there was a way to integrate the arts into these, so I started bringing in 2 or 3 performers to smaller Kin dialogue sessions, and I would make maybe a 20 or 30-minute presentation, usually with music, that spoke to some aspect of innovative thinking through the realm of the arts. The first presentation was about the Gershwins. The second one was a 5-piece percussion ensemble. I did one purely on solo flute and so on. We brought in an actor. And then, after about 2 or 3 years of that, the first Kin Global arose, and I suggested to Rob that there be a very big, significant, 90-minute program. The first Kin Global came around, and Rob asked me if there was something we could do on a much larger scale involving the arts. I said, sure, and came up with the idea for what we now call, and have called for 8 years, Etudes for Innovation. The idea being that we would present various artists and represent very diverse disciplines, but that the etude would be for the audience, not for the performer. In musical terms, or I guess across the arts, an etude is differentiated from an exercise. So if you had music lessons as a kid, an exercise is playing scales up and down and up and down. If you're a drummer, it's playing, rudiments and so on. But an etude is different. An etude is an exercise, but it has to have an aesthetic component. That's why Chopin etudes are performed in concert halls. Yes, they're exercises, but they qualify as works of art as well. So that's how we came up with the name Etudes for Innovation. Etudes Opus 8, which was staged here at the New World Center, was probably, at least a year in gestation, following, of course, from 7 previous years and all that we had learned there. We knew it would be in an extremely innovative venue designed by Frank Gehry. So I started thinking about artists who could be brought in who not only were innovative by nature of their work, but who would also be interesting to present in this hall, because there are multiple level stages and there are platforms up above the stage and so on. So it became, from a challenge point of view, selecting a diverse group of artists, but at the same time selecting artists I knew I could place in different areas of the hall. And of course, we wanted to also include as many Miami-based or South Florida-based artists as possible. My segment of the show opened with a saxophone solo, following a poem about the saxophone that had been written especially for us by Marshall Jones. The reason that I selected the saxophone for treatment at Etudes is because I fell in love with the thing, when I was probably 10 years old or 12 years old or something like that. Then many years went by when I didn't play it, and I came back to it. There's something about the instrument, which we talked about last night, that is so rewarding to me. It's not just the sound that comes out of it and the neat stuff you get to play that's written for saxophone. There's a visceral response for me playing the saxophone. It vibrates and resonates through my whole body. My chest cavity feels good with this instrument making vibrations right next to it. And because its tradition is late in terms of musical development, the saxophone only comes along in 1848, it has been at the forefront of many, many musical innovations, and that's always appealed to me. When I think about what the etude for me is in all of these presentations for the Kin, it's an exercise in that sense of selecting talent that is somehow different from what's been presented before and coming up with a cohesive show that addresses a certain theme. for that year. The year before last, it was strings attached. Everything in the show had to do with strings. This year, it was new worlds in the making. So there's the challenge of finding the theme and then programming according to that theme. The aesthetic part of the etude that I referred to is trying to present something that ultimately makes people feel good, not just about being around, but feel good about being challenged. And that's what's really most gratifying, is having people come up to me after doing a program on the saxophone, for example, and saying, I never knew that about the saxophone, but what else can I learn from it? That's really, really rewarding to me. And crafting something like that in an aesthetic dimension just rings my bell.